Now, from the Pope John Paul II Cultural Center in Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome to The World Over Live. We have some great...
Hi.
Some not so great guests as well coming up.
I'm so happy to be here tonight.
Yeah, could you stay in your own frame? Talk show host.
What's in your cup? You have
author Laura Ingraham is here.
Let's talk about what they're serving
to chat
here at the
about
JP.
A little joint project. As you see, she's not going to let me get through this
intro.
intro.
The Pope liked a little.
Do you want an interview, or are you going to keep this routine?
All right, I'm looking at the prompter. Yours is much smaller than Obama's. Do you notice that?
Yeah, I did notice that.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I finish here?
Yes, please.
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Her new book, The Zing, America's Cultural Decline from Muffin Tops to Body Shots. Later in the program, if we survive. Stop it. That's enough.
All right.
And later, I'll bring you an encore of my interview with former Patriarch of Venice, now Archbishop of Milan, Cardinal Angelo Scola. And finally, with some of the summer travel, some of you may have missed my recent interview with the Holy See's permanent observer to the UN, Archbishop Francis Chullikatt. We'll bring you an encore of that interview. But first...
DVR that, baby.
Here we go.
Hit that DVR.
She's the most listened to woman in talk radio, and no wonder why. She won't let anyone else get a word in edgewise. A former attorney and a clerk for Justice Clarence Thomas.
Former attorney is one of the best things you could say about me. Now I'm kind of.
But no, I'm building to the good stuff.
I can't get any better than that.
No, I'm going to top it.
Jeez, who isn't a former attorney?
We're going to
top
it.
Out of the bio. Who's responsible for that?
She's also a Catholic convert. Now that's higher.
That's a good one.
That's higher on the
okay.
Also, she's a #1 New York Times best-selling author who is here to discuss her latest project, a non-political book of The Zing, America's Cultural Decline from Muffin Tops to Body Shots. Would you welcome my friend, though we may revise that after tonight, Laura Ingraham.
Hey, how are you?
Great to have
you
here. Okay, now, should I issue the disclaimer before we start?
The fact that there's a frightened man in the boat with me on the cover of this book. Are we putting up a full screen now?
Yeah, it's up. So now,
okay, it's
and
done.
They can obviously see that's a favorite host.
Can you see that? Yeah, that. I don't think that exactly exudes confidence to the American people to see you petrified in a 1700s wooden skiff, as I am so now, confidently leading the boat.
Cover. Well, that's why I'm petrified, because you are leading the expedition.
Yes. Well, it is a mock-up, obviously, a little spoof on Washington's Crossing the Delaware, the iconic painting, and it's Washington wants to lead and wants to start this new nation, and the culture and politics all together, and independence and all that. And yet, there were lots of challenges for Washington at the time, big challenges. And we similarly have big challenges in our culture. You talk about the culture all the time on this program. So beyond politics, beyond economics, beyond terrorism, we have our culture to deal with day in and day out. So basically, over the last couple of years, you and I have been chatting about some of the various horrors that we observe on a daily basis in the culture. Some of them might seem very small to you, but in their totality, people, doesn't it make you worry about the future of the country?
Well,
and don't you want to laugh at it? So that's kind of how it all happened.
Now, let's talk, why this turn away from politics? In the past, you've done a lot of political books, but there's kind of a satirical edge in your previous book as well as this one.
Right. Obama Diaries was kind of a spoof on the Obamas, what they really think behind closed doors, the mother-in-law, Michelle, plotting the garden, literally and figuratively, and what that all meant, sort of the backdrop of their life together. And a lot of that was fiction. This is a complete turn because, guess what? I'm now a mom. I'm a mom of 3 kids, and it's this is my world. I'm talking to other mothers all the time, whether it's in carpools or play groups, and we're sitting kibitzing and so forth. And so many of them, beyond politics, are really worried about whether it's what's on the billboards and the music lyrics, how their kids are speaking, or other children are dressing, the play date mania that we have in the parenting life today, just all the trappings of parenthood and the culture.
How has being a mother changed the way you look at that culture?
I'm worried about what's coming down the line. I'm worried about what's around us now, but I'm trying to figure out creative ways to try to make my kids think it's cool not to be one of the
pack.
Yeah, the pack that carries itself in a particularly unflattering and undignified way. So it's a challenge.
Let's get into some of the critiques that you raise in this book. Disgrace Book is a chapter here where you kind of take on technology. What is wrong, Laura Ingraham, with technology? If there's anyone tethered to technology almost nonstop, it is you.
Yeah, you people have a policy on this in this studio that guests have to drop their phones in a basket.
Confiscated.
It's like
at the door.
second collection plate at Mass. I mean, you're like, oh, the second, okay, drop it in. You have to drop that phone in. But I'm part of the problem, and part of this book is admitting to myself, like a 12-step program, right? I am a tech zombie, and I am part of the problem. I mean, you become part of this universe where you're gobbling up all this information all the time, but much of it, not all of it, but much of it is extraneous, unnecessary, and takes you away from living life in the moment and in the time that you're supposed to be experiencing something. Instead, you're holding up the phone. Where is my phone, by the way? Oh, hold on, 1 second. Okay, so you're holding up the phone.
They apparently didn't confiscate it.
I should actually video the segment while it's happening and then see if I can actually pay attention to the very perspicacious questions you're asking.
But
you know what people
you have a lot of experience with that sort of thing.
Well, you know, people you're on a date, you and Rebecca, you're on your date night, and let's say you and Rebecca are on date night, and honey, the kids had such a great week, and you're like this. Oh yeah, Oh yeah,
Because you're reading the text.
How long do you think you'd be sitting at that table?
Not for long.
No, but that's what's happened to us, and so a lot of it is a spoof on that people who will line up for days to get the iPad 3 next year, but how many of them would line up to give blood to a distressed, neighbor? Maybe a lot
or relative, for that matter.
But it's all something else is going on here. We're hungry for all this stuff, but it's not really making us happier.
What is a laptop person?
Well, have you guys gone into these coffee shops, right? We go into these coffee shops, and people are sitting there, and for the life of me, I have no idea what they're doing. But they're there for hours or days. I mean, some of them, by the smell of them, they've been there for weeks, okay? And you try to even get a gander at what brilliant masterpiece that they're compiling on their screens. They cover it up like it's Fermat's Theorem, Part 3, okay? They are so protective of their screens. Meanwhile, you go up and, hey, what's going on? What are you writing something?
No communication at all.
They look at you like, how dare you cross into my aura space? And I'm like, this is a Starbucks, okay, dude? You're not Hemingway, and don't pretend you are. But it's the whole land of the zombies.
There's a chapter here on religion that I found very funny.
Now, is this where my seat ejects right out of the building?
No, not yet, not yet.
Okay.
And you write, faith. The chapter is eat, pray, just keep God out of it, which kind of sets the tone.
Right, eat, pray, love.
Faith is a gift, you say, and apparently there are a lot of Americans in the returns line. What does that mean?
Well, it's just, I think, for a lot of folks, faith becomes something you in passing say, oh, yes, I believe in God and so forth. But the trendy thing to do is to not often stand up for your faith in public.
Or be a member of any specific faith.
Or just be, excuse me, well, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. And then, you know what I say to that? Actually, I'm religious and not spiritual at all. So and then they kind of, it's like, hold up garlic and keep me out of the room. So no, but it's a situation in our country, I think, where our faith has become untethered to the world around us, and it's a bit of an afterthought, and that's why EWTN and everything that you guys do is so great, because it becomes part of your life, and it's fun, and it's actually really liberating. It's not as the atheists want to point out, a prison or a straitjacket. I mean, my faith. I'd be a real bore right now if it weren't for my faith. Come on.
Now, you point out some outrages here that I think many in the audience will share.
Oh, no, Mass? Can we talk about...
Yes, go ahead.
How many times have you heard either a relative of yours, or my mother would say this when we would go to churches before I became a Catholic, well, you look at that one. My mother, God rest her soul, was so funny. Will you look at that one? What is she wearing in the pews?
Some of the outfits.
No, excuse me. It's soccer practice and church. That's just one continuum, or Mass. It's all the same. You're in your cleats, your shorts, and I would say, Ma, come on, Ma, Jesus wore sandals. And so she says, when what's-my-face over there starts turning water into wine, then you can wear what they just wore. But it's just a sense of, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me, I'm old-fashioned, but what you wear isn't everything, of course, and so forth. But it is something, and I think we can probably do a little bit better.
Well, you show respect. You show respect by what you wear and how you carry yourself.
May I share a story with you?
You may share any story you wish.
Okay, so I'm lined up at confession. Now, this must have been, I think I emailed you when this happened. This was, and it made it in the book, it was about 2 months ago, okay? And there's a long line, okay? It was on a Saturday. And I'm thinking, of course, I have to confess half the things I'm thinking in line to get before I get into
Including
the box.
half of this book.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm right. So I'm like, oh, come on. And long confessor, and then I'm like, okay, waiting. Pops out of the box, and it is a woman, and I'm talking about Jacques Cousteau fitting spandex. And I mean, that is tight. There is water seal on that, okay? And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on? Did we go right from Bikram yoga right into the... And then I go, and I actually confess that, because who am I to say what people should be wearing in confession? It's ridiculous. It's great they're going to confession. What is wrong with me?
But there has to be a standard for what you wear.
I think so, because otherwise we will be showing up with adult diapers and Huggies all mass. I mean, soon it will be just that point. I mean, it'll be a few like really bad Italian horn chains and some like, and then it'll be, a Pampers, and that's
Watch it. Don't talk about the Italians.
No, I'm practically Italian.
Oh, you're an honorary Italian?
I am. Italians say that about me.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
There's
but
a parenting,
just the chains with nothing else.
There's a parenting chapter here that really is funny, called Mommy Make It Stop. You take on play dates, what you call play hates. Now, what can possibly be the matter with children getting together for organized play? My children probably never be invited on another play date, which is fine by me. Well, here's what happens, okay? I'm made to feel somehow that I'm not a good mother when someone's child, God bless her, comes into my home and looks around. We have toys, but we don't have a toy, It's not Toys R Us.
We don't have our own Toys R Us in the basement, okay? Mom, are those all the toys they have in this house? Oh, that was the first comment. My first play date, ever, first play date. And she said, do you have any other toys? And I looked at little Bitsy and I said, no, we actually have a whole toy-making factory out back for the good children.
Oh, you are cruel.
No, what is wrong with me that I'm getting into an argument with a 6-year-old? Is there something, there is something deeply wrong with my view of the world.
I was going to bring that up, but I thought I'd save that for the therapy section later.
The play dates thing is more, I think, let's face it, and I've been guilty of this, and I'm spoofing myself because this is part of me. It's sometimes it's for the mothers, right? Yeah. It's really the mother's timeout, right? So they can sit around and go, oh, what did you do? Oh, this happened and this happened.
Or they can just drop the kid off.
Yeah, just dump the kid off. I got to get a manicure now. By the way, I do need a manicure. So yeah, I need to get a manicure and drop the kid off. And we hope that we will have checked out the parents in the homes. So when you come back, your child has not just watched, Freddy Krueger, the Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 when the time you come back and pick her up. There's
another chapter here on habits, manners, missed manners, you call it.
Yes.
And this is about dress, decorum, the way people behave, our habits. There's a section on pickers, people who pick orifices in public.
Okay. This is a low. This is a low. By the way, Raymond was a collaborator in this book, and that was the stuff he wrote.
No, wait a minute.
You wrote that.
Wait a minute.
No,
You're going to out me on the pickers chapter?
I didn't want to put that in the book, but you insisted that go in.
The lady picking her toes on the bus in Disney was your contribution, as I recall.
Look, it is.
And wait till you read this.
It is
write the letters to her.
It is, if I have to say, one of the most side-splittingly hilarious parts of this book. And it's about how shameless can we be in public? I mean,
have we lost all decorum?
I mean, why bother? I mean, it's bad. No, it's bad. It's bad. But I can't believe you brought that up.
I bring it up for this reason.
I'd expect that on Jon Stewart's show, but not on EWTN.
I bring this up because
maybe on the Today Show.
In the title of this book, you mentioned muffin tops.
Oh, yes.
America's cultural decline from muffin tops to body shots. I've mentioned that, and half the people I read that title to, you know what they say? I love muffin tops. I have them in the morning.
The word has been absolutely bastardized. It's been taken away from our vernacular and twisted into something
what do you mean?
So mean. Well, there are people who are of a bit of a heavier girth and larger people. I want them not to be dictated to or talked down to or demonized, because people come in all shapes and sizes. I tell my kids that all the time. I think what might be a bigger problem is when people who are perhaps size, a little larger, 14, 16, 18, or men, when you're in that size 40 Sanzabelt pants, it's probably not a good idea to try to slip into those size 28 straight leg Levi's you wore in 8th grade, okay? And when you do, ladies and gents, there is a vision on the horizon that appears to be a straight, really sausaged-in pant, and then a spillover on the side. Are you catching my hand motion?
Around the waist,
spillover on the side, and the vision, the silhouette, is that of a luscious,
Muffin
indelectable
top.
muffin top. I always eat the muffin tops, don't you? But I don't necessarily want to see a size 18 in a 0 pants.
Okay, but people are going to look at this and say,
it's petty.
Aren't you just being petty and
Yes.
grousing? And
Yes.
how is this the end of American culture?
Any one of these things, you know, isn't really a big deal. It's just funny. But all of them together kind of tell us something about the direction we're going in. And there's a serious undergirding to what I'm saying. You're right. A lot of these are pet peeves. They're just observations. And look, we all, I mean, believe me, I'm at the top of the list of my own observations of foolishness. But altogether, I think it says a lot about who we are today, where we're going, and what we present to the world, what we present to kids, most importantly. So, in the manners chapter, I write about these conversations that you overhear when you go to the grocery store. Two grown men, or sometimes a man and a woman, saying the most horrible things to each other in public. Maybe they're joking, but the words and the language they use.
Filthy.
And my daughter or my son will say, "Mommy, what does so and so mean?" or "What does that mean?" And I'm thinking, then they see the children, and I'll say, "Excuse me, there are children here. What am I supposed to do about it? I don't have kids. You deal with your own kids." And I think to myself, okay, that's not just a mistake or a slip of the tongue. That's a willful, in-your-face, I'll do whatever I want, and I don't care how it affects the young people. Really, this book is I hope, a cultural intervention. A way for us to laugh through the summer. A lot of stuff is tough out there for people. People to laugh, because we all are guilty of some of this. Yeah. And also just to kind of grab you by the lapels, let's save this culture. Let's see what we do. Let's try in our own ways, in our own homes, do a little bit better. And I think then we'll really have a big smile on our face by the end of it.
It helps. After reading it, a number of people have emailed me and said, who've
They're
gotten early
noticing
copies,
things.
they're noticing things in their world, and they say, "Oh my gosh, you've captured this. Your book has changed my life," a writer sent us the other day.
Yeah.
It's interesting how they kind of pick up, they're just newly attuned, I think, to things in the culture that otherwise went by them.
And things, for instance, like even when you travel today. Remember traveling? I mean, I still remember the few times I traveled with
Remember, we're about to go on a book tour.
Well,
we'll
exactly.
Be able to
no, but I'm just saying when you were
person.
younger, I'm much older than you, but when younger and people traveled, they dressed up.
Yep.
And now, isn't it quite shocking to see someone dressed up on a plane?
Well, now
that's an aberration.
Well, now they're in pajamas and flip-flops.
Oh, no, that's the dress-up people. Those are really dressed up in the pajamas. No, it's the singlets and the hairy arms and the. By the way, people, if you learn anything in this segment, do not reach into the seat back compartment in front of you. Never reach into that.
What's in there?
You will find all manner of old grilled cheeses, used wipes. I mean diaper wipes. I mean, the baby wipes.
Have you done an exploratory of all of these
No,
seat-back
Raymond, I
compartments?
practically travel with my own hazmat team now. I am a real, it's sad. But, why can't we do better than that?
What do you want people to do after reading this book of Zing?
I want people to, first of all, in this summer of recovery, are we still recovering from last summer of recovery? I want them to laugh. I want people to take a moment, laugh, think about all these things, from religion to schools, what's happening in our schools, what's happening on television, what's happening.
Pop culture.
Lyrics, it's a big part of this book. It's everywhere. You are assaulted by sounds and sights, most of them unwanted throughout your days. Think about it. Don't just let it all become wallpaper. Think about ways that you can affirmatively make a statement. Maybe it is calling someone out in a nice way. I understand you're in a heated argument, but I have a child here, and it really would be great if you, kind of. And then, most times people will say, "Oh my goodness, I'm sorry," and maybe they'll think next time not to behave that way. Or maybe, something. If you mind not diapering your child on the pull-down tray table on the plane, that would be great, because my son often puts his pretzels on there and eats them off the bare tray. Just do it in a nice way, and if then they don't listen, well, then they're part of the larger toxicity.
Laura Ingraham,
great
thanks
to see
for
you.
being here. It's
all right,
fun.
sorry for the shadow puppets.
The shadow puppets were great. You can come back anytime and do those. Zing is available at bookstores everywhere, including Costco, Sam's, and at all the usual online retailers. For more details, go to lauraingraham.com. The Zing book tour begins this week. We'll see you on the road. We're doing a little book giveaway tonight as well.
And good. And anything that you object to in this book you think is essentially cruel and mean,
send her a letter.
Look at your host.
Send her a letter. Yeah. Here's the book giveaway, okay? Send us your zings. What is the most outrageous thing you've seen in church lately or in society, and what did you do about it? Send your zing to raymond@raymondarroyo.com. Put zing in the subject line, include your name, address, and phone number, and I will post the funniest stories and send you a signed copy of the I Zing.
And by the way, can I have one more
she'll
thing?
do hand puppets at your
home,
right outside the window.
One thing I saw the other day. People actually threw, and you're not supposed to look what people throw in the collection plate. That's totally, you're not supposed to do that. But I can't avert my gaze sometimes. Chuck E. Cheese tokens were thrown in the collection plate. I'm not kidding you. And it wasn't done by a child.
Oh
I'm not kidding.
The exposés never end. When we return, Cardinal Angelo Scola recently became the Archbishop of Milan and is considered a possible papal contender. Meet him when the World Over Live continues. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
In late June of this year, Pope Benedict XVI appointed Cardinal Angelo Scola, Archbishop of Milan, a post considered by many to be a step on the road to the papacy. Given his new position, I thought it would be good to show you an encore of a conversation we had with the Cardinal. We spoke with him here at the John Paul II Center in 2007. He was in town for an interfaith dialogue with Muslim leader Muzammil Siddiqui. I sat down with the Cardinal to discuss his humble upbringing, his concern about the future of Christian Europe, and of course, the challenge of dialogue between Islam and Christianity. Here's my exclusive interview with Angelo Cardinal Scola. Take a look. Let's begin with your background. You are the son of a truck driver and a homemaker, something you've made no excuses for. In fact, it really is something that you're quite proud of. How has that shaped your ministry?
I think, above all, in giving me a very deep sense of the people, to stay among the people, to live with them, and to perceive the experience of life by the people. And it seems to me that the great tradition of the Catholic Church has always strong understrike this attitude. When the Church speaks about the sensus fidei, the sense of the faith which is owned by the people of God. So, for me, my roots in my family, very humble, but so capable of love and truth, help me very much in my pastoral care.
You have been very concerned with the future of Europe as a Christian, as the cradle of Christianity. There are reports we're reading now in France, for instance, that the country is no longer Catholic or no longer considers itself so. How do you see the Church surviving in Europe?
The answer at that question would be very long, because we must do a very differentiated analysis. The situation in Italy is very different in comparison with French or Germany or United Kingdom. It's different also, very strongly different also in comparison with Spain. But generally speaking, I would say that the problem is for Europe the passage from a mechanical assumption of Christianity by convention to an aware belongings to the Christianity. That is the problem. So we need today to come back to the elementary experience of Christianity, which means to come back to the elementary experience of man. Because Christianity is only the family name, the proper name of human. It's not other thing. So, like every man and woman, the Christian person is somebody who loves, who has a job, who rests. So we have to show how to belong to Jesus Christ, to follow him, permit me to live better such elementary experience. That is the problem. To build up. Sure.
And you think people have to be reminded of that again, to sort of awaken that Christian soul?
Exactly. The problem in Europe, the common problem in Europe, but I think also in the United States, is quite a regeneration of the people of God through the coming back to the elementary experience that Jesus did with his own disciples. What did Jesus? For the two years of his mission, he spent time with them, living between Capharnaum, Bethsaida, Chorazim, 4 kilometers. 2 years he spent there. And then he spent 6 months on the other side of the Galilee Mare, and then the last 6 months in Jerusalem. So he tried to live with them, proposing the real idea of God, the God as Father in the Holy Spirit, and try to involve them in new kind of links capable of showing that we can never separate truth from love. That is the elementary experience of Christianity.
Part of the challenge facing Europe, facing America, is integrating and getting along with and finding common bonds with our Islamic brethren here. Part of the reason you're here today is to engage in a dialogue.
Yes.
My first question is, and it really runs to the root of what we're talking about, this idea of expressing our faith with truth, yet we're confronted here with people who believe something, certainly in a single God, but beyond that, the links are very thin. How do you dialogue, and with whom do you dialogue in Islam? Who has the same credibility that, say, the Pope has?
The very important question is who dialogues? Who does dialogue? In order to answer to that, we have to come back to the question of the people. 3 or 4 years ago, I was in New Delhi, and I met a community of people. There were many persons married with Hindu women or men. And I was very struck by the fact that the real dialogue is something which happened within their own elementary experience of living. How can I love my spouse who is Hindu? What meaning for the education of our children? What the meaning of the job, of the way to spend money, to rest? That is the ground of the dialogue. Also today with Muslims. we must, within each other, we must know how we are living the elementary experience of your humanity. And then, from this experience, some questions are continuously rising. And you have to engage with those questions. Yeah. But also, we have to propose our little or great testimony every day, we think. But not only, that is the first level of my answer. Of course, there is also a second level, a level that the leader within the different religion must meet each other and put forth such a question. For example, the question of the religion's freedom, which is absolutely a cornerstone of the civil society, not only of the religious society. And so we have to discuss very hardly with our brother Muslim that question with everybody. But also in such field, we must make some distinction. One thing is the role of the state in order to pretend a respect of the religious freedom in every society. Other thing could be the attitude of the Catholic Church. For example, it's right to demand a certain reciprocity, but not in an abstract way. Because our strong possibility of being witness is to show the infinite possibility of love. So we have to practice a certain gratuitousness in order to explain our position, like Jesus Christ. Jesus was the living truth, but he proposed himself to the finite freedom. He was crucified.
That gratuitousness that you spoke about, that boldness, has been practiced by Pope Benedict in recent days, calling for a separation between violence and faith, and that the twain shall never be used to justify the other, that the two should never be used in that way. Is anyone listening? Are the Islamic leaders throughout the world listening to that cry? Even your own collaborator, Bishop Anthony Lobo of Pakistan, said it's very difficult because the young are being taught that we are all infidels. Who's listening, and how do you get past that?
Of course, is a long process, the process of listening. We have to learn the receptivity as a very important condition in order to know each other. And this situation will really take some decade in order to be overcome. We have to move step by step with courage, but also with patience. And we have to show the beautiful of the human experience illuminated by Jesus Christ. And to try always to put forth the radical question of human living, personal question and communitarian question too, religious and civil question.
But this question of violence, Your Eminence, how do you get past it when so many, the young, are listening to the more radical voices?
My problem in responding to that is the following. We have to make a right distinction between Islam and Islam. Our redacteur of the review Oasis are trying to describe in every number a different Islam. For example, in Indonesia, in Turkey, in Sudan, in Kosovo, there are different situations. There are many situations, for example, in Kosovo, where for many, many centuries, we could live together in peace. In Lebanon was the same. So the problem is the following. Violence is not coming from the religion, but is coming from the religion we enter, the ideology which enter into the religion. Ideology that means cultural and political perspective in order to build up a civil society. So these two problems. Look carefully to the different Islam, first one. A secondary, don't attribute to the religion what we must attribute to the ideology.
My final question. The family and the sustenance of the family will no doubt, I think, having moved through some of these Islamic countries, and I'm sure in your experience, this is, it seems to me, the common experience, a love of family, a wanting to protect it.
Sí.
What do you identify as the greatest challenges to the family today? And what can we all do to further protect it?
That is really one of the most important tasks within Christianity today, in Western, but everywhere. Unfortunately, it seems to me that people today, but not directly simple people, but opinion leaders, are confused about three essential dimensions which are at the basis of the family. That means sexual difference. I have not the time, but difference is not diversity. There is today a very great confusion on that topic. Everybody thinks that difference is diversity, are two different things. But today there are confusion about the sexual difference, about the real meaning of love, and about the fecundity, the openness to the life. The nuptial mystery, the elementary experience of nuptiality, implies, in any case, always the unity of these three dimensions. Sexual difference, a capacity of loving as self-giving, and openness to the life. You have to rediscover that, but not only condemning a mistake, but above all, through family capable of testimony that way of living the sexual relation, man, woman, is the best way, is convenient to live the family grounded of the durable and trusted union between man and woman, open to the life, is the best and the most convenient way to love. We have to show it. There are many young people who are capable of testify such an attitude. So the problem for the Christianity today, for the Christian, is not only to condemn, not only say no, but above all show that the way of Christian love is a great yes to the life, capable of realizing really the real freedom, capable of the accomplish the man.
I want to introduce you to the Holy See's permanent observer to the United Nations. He's a native of India and an experienced Vatican diplomat who's previously served as the nuncio to Iraq and Jordan. I sat down with him recently to discuss his work at the UN and his efforts to carry the Church's message to the international community. Here's Archbishop Francis Chullikatt. Now, this is not your first trip to the Holy See mission. You spent some time there earlier. Tell us what you did there.
I was here before from 2000 to 2004. Well, I came in as a novice at that time. United Nations was an organization which I always looked with admiration for the great things they have done in the past. So I came in with all that zeal and fervor to see the United Nations doing only good things to the world and working for the development and the peace and the interreligious dialogue, the harmony, the brotherhood. You can name a lot of these values that we hold so dear to our heart.
Right.
And so I came with a great deal of expectation to the United Nations. And I started with the Security Council.
How did the reality of the UN compare with your expectations before you got there? And we're working intimately and closely with these diplomats there.
Yes. Well, my expectation, as I said, was very high about because I thought that the UN can really do a great deal in bringing peace and harmony around the world, and they would have a lot of respect towards the religious and cultural values. But from my experience so far, what I see is that that respect for the national interests of a country, especially if that country belongs to a developing nation, or we used to call them in the past the third world countries,
right.
You know, the underdeveloped countries, who are chronically dependent on the foreign aid. Unfortunately, there are certain countries at the United Nations that are targeting these countries, using these countries to support their national issues.
And their agenda.
Their agenda, which they want to internationalize.
We've seen this in the past on reporting.
Yes.
You know, in my personal coverage, being in Cairo, being in China as part of these markups of these big documents, it almost, the foreign aid becomes almost a coercion for these countries to move along and really subvert the values of their own people and their own governments.
Exactly. And when you said the word correctly, government, because it's the government that is in charge that tries to distort the values of the people whom they represent.
Let's talk about one of the major issues that time and time again we hear this. In speaking to diplomats from other countries, I hear this all the time. Population. The population around the world is exploding. It is a drain on the environment, on resources, on economies. You would say what?
The Church's position on this issue is very clear. The human beings are not the problem for the underdevelopment. Human beings are a resource for the development. So our position on this issue is that it is by investing in children that you will be promoting development, not the other way around. It is not by eliminating the poor people that you are going to eradicate poverty. So it has to be very clear. We've made that very clear in our intervention.
Are you amazed that there seems to be almost an international consensus now that the aid that needs to be provided to these countries, particularly Africa, South America, developing countries, is contraception and abortion on demand, rather than wells, water, clean food, access to agriculture and a way of life? It seems to be this emphasis on this contraceptive solution.
Yes.
Your thoughts on that, particularly as regards Africa? There was this UN Commission on Social Development. You objected to the document because it called abortion a human right.
Yes.
Why did you object?
Our position is that coming back to the human beings as a resource for every nation and society, we should be starting investing in the basics of the needs of every human being. What does that mean? Basic health care, primary education, and the rights of the minorities, religious freedom. So these are some of the issues that UN should be investing heavily. I can tell you from my personal experience, I have visited so many villages in Iraq and in many other countries where I served in the United States Church. I go to a particular village, a rural area, distantly placed from the outskirts, even from the outskirts, distant from the outskirts of the society, the cities, and you can't find any UN presence there. Whose presence you find there? Catholic Church's presence is there. And I'm talking about a Muslim countries. And why we are doing that? Because we believe in the human beings and the greatest potential they have.
There was a resolution on the family that came up recently.
Yes.
And in it, they didn't refer to the mother or father in that resolution, and you were concerned about that. Why?
Certain member states within the United Nations are trying to change the concept of the notion which is called parents. They are objecting to the proposal that the Holy See is making to include, you can always say parents, but at the same time, why don't you use also as a synonym or another expression of these parents as father and mother? But then we get the strongest objection from a number of countries within the United Nations. And they are so allergic to the mention of the words father and mother, and they are more concerned about mentioning parents or the caregivers. So they go for these neutral terms
that you can redefine at will.
In view of redefining the basic concept of the word parents. So what our suspicion is that, and it's not only that, we have also talked about it very openly during negotiations. Our suspicion is that they are trying to bring in the LGBT issue into the concept of the parents. So if you call father and mother, which is the way that we understand the family, they cannot change the notion of the family. But by just calling this neutral term as parents, there could be the gay couple there.
Now, some of those diplomats will say, what is the problem with that? These people have adopted these children and they're raising them as their own, these gay couples, lesbian couples. Why is the Holy See so opposed to that?
We know that the family is the basic unit of the society. And when we talk about the family, we know what it means. And we don't want to have it changed. A family is based on marriage. For Catholics, it is a sacrament. It is not just a simple contract, civil contract. For us, it is something sacred. So the international community should be respectful of our belief. And that is part of the religious freedom and the freedom of conscience.
And I've had conversations in preparation for our interview with diplomats from various delegations around the world. They say in recent days, and I'm going to quote them, they think the Holy See is today more outspoken, more involved in the negotiations than ever before, particularly in the pro-life arena. How much of that is due to you? They claim it's since your arrival that things have become very clear and outspoken. You're right out there. Is that a conscious decision on your part?
I think it has been going on for years, because the mission of the Holy See to the United Nations, we have been building up over the years. So each permanent observer who comes, they try to do their share of the responsibility. You know, Rome was not built in a day. We slowly build up our presence and our voice at the United Nations. So each of us trying to do the best we can so that the church's voices can be heard loud and clear at the United Nations and in other fora of the international community.
Why does all of this matter, Archbishop? A lot of Americans, a lot of Europeans watch this and they go, oh, the United Nations, what difference does it make what's in those documents? But it actually has real import in the locality and back home. Tell us how. How does that translate?
The importance of our intervention in these proceedings is that, first and foremost, as I mentioned earlier, all these things go into the record. After 20 or 30 years, if someone wants to go and study what was the Holy See's position on abortion, for example, then they have all our statements there. And you can invariably see the consistency with which the Holy See has been addressing these issues at the United Nations. And the second point is that we have to talk about these things very explicitly so that people who are negotiating, they will know that the Holy See has not changed lately anything on these issues, and they are continuing to repeat the same thing. And sometimes we are even reinforcing our argument in the light of the latest studies or the research that has been made on these issues.
It should also be said these documents are often used as a benchmark for national law back in the countries.
Yes.
I mean, that's the weight of these documents. They are then held up and said, look, the whole world community has agreed to this.
Not only that, once the UN adopts a resolution on such issues, they call them as soft laws, which will, in turn, will make the so-called customary law. That will find its place eventually into international conventions.
Your Excellency, in the middle of June, an HIV/AIDS declaration went out, a political declaration from the UN. You objected to that declaration. Why did you object? Many assumed because of comments made by Pope Benedict or the reportage of comments made by Pope Benedict related to condom use of male prostitutes. He was conjecturing, and that was largely read as some sort of moral movement in the direction of condom use to protect people against AIDS. Is that your understanding?
Regarding the condom issue, I really wanted to make it clear to our friends at the United Nations, the Church has not changed anything on that issue. Because after this manipulated report that appeared immediately before the publication of the Holy Father's that interview publication, The Light of the World, some way or other, people started talking about the Church has changed its position on the issue of condoms, which is not the case. In fact, there was an explanation of position from the Holy See, from the Secretary of State, which was published, so that it was made clear that the Church has not changed its position. Only thing is that certain media distorted the words of the Holy Father in favor of certain ideology that is being now propagated, especially when we talk about the HIV/AIDS. Coming back to this high-level meeting on the HIV/AIDS, we talked about the condoms as a prevention measure as suggested by the United Nations. We opposed to that policy that the United Nations wanted to adopt because even as the Holy Father himself says, when we talk about the prevention measures that are to be adopted in fighting the HIV/AIDS, first and foremost what we are talking about, the so-called AVC policy. First, abstinence, and be faithful, and then condoms. This is the UN's agenda. Our position is that if we can really implement through education abstinence and fidelity within the marriage and outside the marriage, the disease which we call as HIV/AIDS can be treated on a long-term basis, and it can even be eradicated. Why I am saying that? I'm not just making it up. We have concrete examples for this. Uganda is one of the examples.
One of the only countries where it's going down.
Is going down.
And why?
And why? Because they apply the abstinence and fidelity policy there. And it works. And it will work on a long-term basis because it's only a matter of educating people to be sexually responsible. We have so many other priorities also. But if you are teaching the young people to be sexually responsible, to be faithful, and to practice abstinence, then you don't need to give anything. And you don't even have to spend all this money that we are spending all over the world.
In your intervention, I was surprised to learn the church really, a lot of people say, oh, you're just a bunch of cranks, you're moralizing. The fact is the church provides 25% of the care for people living with HIV/AIDS,
yes.
which I was totally unaware of, and I imagine a lot of people watching are. I mean, so that gives the church
yes.
instant credibility on this issue. They're actually carrying on the ground. I know here in New York City, where we're doing this interview, exactly. Downtown, Mother Teresa's order has a home dedicated to HIV/AIDS victims, and they help them, they bathe them, they care for them, they give them the medication. It's a haven. And I remember years ago we were down there, and one of the guys told me, I lived like a dog, but I die like an angel.
Exactly.
Because of the love he was receiving.
Exactly, exactly. Because, and I also mentioned to some of my colleagues at the United Nations, Catholic Church is a big stakeholder in this because we are investing heavily. As you said, 25% of the health services that we are giving is for the HIV/AIDS patients. And in many countries, and if you are to go and see at the United States, how many countries are investing like the Catholic Church in this deserving cause? And for these people who are in some countries, they are the outcasts of the society. But we go and help them. So the commitment and dedication with which the church is investing for the good of the people is something amazing. And there, even if these people are telling against the church's involvement in this, it's not going to any way lessen the credibility of the church and its commitment and its service and dedication for the good of the people, whether they are a Christian or a non-Christian or even an atheist. For us, any needy person is our neighbor that deserves our attention and care, and we will continue to do that.
For more on the Holy See's mission to the UN, visit holyseemission.org. Until next week, you can find updates and the occasional commentary by following me on Twitter at twitter.com/Raymond Arroyo or on my Facebook page. Those of you who follow me get not only previews of our shows, but additional material from our guests. You can always find me at RaymondArroyo.com and click through to the Facebook page and the Twitter page from there. Come see me on the Zing book tour. We're in Long Island, Denver, Vegas, St. Louis, Houston, Kansas City, and in Birmingham at the EWTN Family Celebration next weekend. Until next week, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, I'm Raymond Arroyo. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye now.